Hey, what's up, Internet? Dan Fletcher here from Lemon Bracket. Um, Today I'm just sharing a pre recorded screencast, I guess, if you want to call it that. For my computer science degree, I'm taking a web development course right now. It's just like an introductory course, so it's nothing crazy. We had an assignment where we had to make a 5-page website, and the requirements was actually just to use Wix, which is like a what you see is what you get editor. So I asked if it was alright if I just wrote the code myself, and since the requirements have nothing to do with writing code, I figure there's no real issue just sharing this online. It's not like students taking this course after me can use this to cheat or anything. So what you saw me do there, I started I started working on this and then realized, hey, maybe I should record it. Might be kind of a cool video. So I just deleted what I was working on, and then now I'm just setting up the new project. So I'm not using any build tools or anything like that I would normally use on the front end. It's just like just straight coded site. So I just made my JS folder, CSS folder. Honestly, those folders aren't even needed. I ended up only making like a scripts.js file and then just like a main styles.css. So I didn't even need those. And then I made an images directory just for some of the assets. One of the requirements is to have 5 images in the website. So we had to pick some sort of topic to make the website. So I just decided to make it a tribute site for Dean Kamen, who's an American inventor and engineer. If you don't use Emmet already, that's what you see me using here. So I was able to just HTML:5, and then I hit tab, and that's what made the scaffolding that you saw there. And then when I did meta colon VP, that's just like your standard viewport meta tag for mobile devices. And then here, I'm just looking basically to steal just a mobile nav. I wasn't gonna throw too much time into this assignment. If I had chosen to do Wix, it was something that probably would have taken an hour, or actually probably a lot less. So because I decided to just straight code it, I already knew it was going to take me longer than the assignment should have. So I didn't want to spend too much time like custom coding everything. And I use CodePen professionally a lot. I don't really consider myself a front end developer, so if there's like a component that I kind of know that I want in my head, or maybe I was given a design from a graphics designer and I don't really feel like making it myself, I'll find something that's close enough on CodePen and then I'll just modify it. And yeah, so I was just taking a look at that. Seemed alright enough. And you might have noticed there too that this one originally was using Sass, but I just decided to forego any tools, any preprocessors or anything. So I'm not using Sass. Normally, that's what I use. Um, so the software I'm using to record my voice right now just crashed. I had about 10 minutes further along than this, so now I have to redo it. Anyway, so in CodePen there, the the CSS was actually written in Sass. So I just clicked the little arrow there. There's a drop down, and then you click View Compiled, right? So I just copied the compiled CSS and just brought it into style.css. And like I said, honestly, this didn't need to go into a CSS folder. It ends up being the only script that I use, but whatever. Okay, so now I'm just about to fill in the links with the pages that are going to be my site. So I did have a little bit of a plan going into this before I opened up my editor. But like I said, I wasn't really planning on spending a whole lot of time with this. So there's not a whole lot. I just jotted down the pages really quickly and put a whole lot of thought into what pages I wanted there. And then I just sketched out on my whiteboard just the first idea that came to mind. Just a really basic layout for the home page, and then one that's slightly different for the sub pages. Normally I would spend a little more time with this process, but I mean, being not really a designer, this takes me a long time anyway, so I definitely wasn't gonna spend any more time than I had to for an assignment that really shouldn't take like more than an hour tops, right? I'm definitely going overboard by coding it myself, so and then I'm just throwing a reference in there so I know for later where that code came from. Or if anyone ever inspects my site, I guess it's cool that there's a shout out there to the guy that made the nav bar that I'm so elegantly stealing. Okay, so what am I doing? Oh, so I was trying to figure out why it wasn't working, and I forgot to put the style tag in. And I also don't have the script tag in the bottom yet. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Yeah, I end up having a bit of a dirt moment here, so I'm gonna grab the JavaScript code, well, jQuery actually, throw it in here, and I don't know why I totally forgot to put in the script tag and I couldn't figure out what was going on, so you're gonna see me dinking around for like a minute. Yeah. Anyway, so one of the things with this project, like this isn't my typical workflow, right? I just wanted to keep it as bare bones as possible so people at school or whatever can follow along with this. So you're gonna see me be kind of indecisive about some of my style, and it's just because this isn't a workflow that I do every day. Normally, if I'm doing front end stuff, like one of the biggest difference here, like I definitely will be using Sass, and so Sass is just it's a preprocessor for CSS. So it takes, well, I guess it gives you like extra things. It's like CSS on steroids, right? It gives you things that you don't normally have, and then it takes that code and then it compiles it or transpiles it into CSS that your browser actually understands. So one of the things that Sass gives you is the ability to split your CSS into a whole bunch of little files. So like everything's well organized, and like I would have like a button style or like a nav style, and like everything would be in its own file. And then when you run your CSS or your Sass compiler, it will smush all of those styles into one CSS file, right? So you only have to send one file to the browser, and then that ends up being what you actually link in your HTML. But just for simplicity, I didn't want to use too many tools or anything. So here I'm just grabbing jQuery as a dependency of that nav bar that I took from CodePen, so I just have to pull in a CDN for that. And it needs to go above the JS scripts.js, so I'm just going to move that. And it should work. Ends up having like a weird glitch to it that's not, like, you can't see it in the CodePen example. So I didn't really bother trying to figure out the glitch because I wanted it to be flush with the top and the sides of the page anyway. So that's just a quick style fix. And I'm like way off my game here. I'm trying to edit the user agent style. There we go. So yeah, just margin 0 in the body, sucks it right up to the top and the sides, and then you can't see that weird glitch. So I just added that style to the style sheet, so now it's good. And I got a cold going on if you can't tell, so that's why the energy from the first video that I released and the energy in this video is like totally different. I'm just feeling like crap today, but I want to try to stick with this and release a video every week, so I figured what the heck. So this is a font that I've been using quite a bit recently, called Railway. One, it's a nice sans serif font, but it also comes with a really nice range, from very, very light, like so light you should never use it on a web page anyway, to very, very dark. It's nice because a designer has quite a bit of flexibility with what they can put in the design, and then if they choose a font like Railway in the design, it makes it a lot easier as a developer to just grab the Google Web font instead of trying to get all the font files together. Makes it a little easier on the designer too when they hand off the design to you. So I'm just throwing that in to my styles, and then the fallback's just a sans serif, and I could probably come up with a longer list of fallbacks than that, but like I said, it's just a school assignment, so I don't really care. I don't remember what I'm doing here. I'm probably looking at, just looking at customizing the menu a little bit. So you'll see too, in this video I kind of teeter-totter on two ideas, so I'm constantly not liking the way it looks, and I'm thinking about changing stuff and you know, like what would be best practice, I guess, too. And then at the same time I'm thinking, well, I also don't want to spend more than like an hour or two making this. So there's a lot of times where I'm just like, fuck it, just whatever. So there's a lot of indecisiveness throughout this. I mean, if I went back, honestly, I probably wouldn't have spent any time stylizing the menu. Like, there's no point. It's not going to matter for my grade. I just thought it looked kind of crappy, so I wanted to fix it a bit. Oh, and so I always use Git for anything, even if it's just a small project. Um, I'm not using an elaborate Git flow or anything like that for this, right? Like just linear history. I forgot to initialize it in the first place, so I'm just hopping into Vim here and just adding a body to this commit and just listing out the things that I had done so far. So that's my initial commit. Yeah, normally I'll just use the built-in Git integration with VS Code. I'm not sure why I did it in the command line there. Maybe I was just thinking at the time it would be good exposure for anybody kind of newer watching this video. So what I'm going for here with the hero image, the idea is that the image should be the full width and the full height of whatever the device is that you're on. So if you're on desktop, the image should cover like the top of your browser to the bottom. And same if you're on a phone, or if you have your phone like in portrait or landscape, like it shouldn't matter. The image should just be full screen no matter what, and it should respect its aspect ratio. So you're gonna see how to do that here in a minute. And for those who don't know, for like a real website that you're making, can't just go to Google and rip images off the web. You want to find what the licensing is, if it's Creative Commons, and if it's okay for you to share without attribution and all that. There's a ton of websites out there with free images that you can use. Like you just search Creative Commons images in Google, and then you'll find like a dozen websites that pretty much all have the same images. So yeah, I found an image, and then before I save it, I was just doing a quick setup in the images folder just to separate some things. So that one, that's gonna be. Oh, so actually the original idea, I sketched it on my whiteboard, included like a profile image of Dean Kamen, like in the top left, and it was gonna be like if you clicked it, it'd bring you to the home page. For whatever reason, I ended up just scrapping that idea. Probably laziness. And then based on the resolution, this one I was planning on using for the mobile and tablet screen sizes. And then here I'm just looking for like a higher resolution photo to display on desktop. I ended up not doing that either. I think there I was contemplating whether or not I wanted the text along the bottom on the site, and I was like, meh, whatever. What am I? Oh, I'm just renaming it to Hero Desktop and Hero Mobile. So the way that I usually, I'll just explain it because I end up not doing it in this. The direction I was gonna go, I would have used JavaScript to check the width of the device, and then based on the width, I would change the source attribute of that image element, right? Another way to do it too, if the image is a background image, like a CSS background image, you can just do it with a media query in CSS. And I'm not sure which way would be better. I tend to just favor using the image tag. I think it makes a little more sense semantically to actually have that tag there rather than a div and then just making a background. And I can accomplish the same both ways anyway, so it's more just preference. Yeah, so the hero container needs to be position relative because the way that I'm gonna full screen that image is with position absolute, because I need it to be full screen and centered. And you'll see how I'm gonna achieve that here in a second. So the hero container too is 100 viewport height. So because the hero container takes up 100% of the viewport and the position is relative, the absolute position child is gonna take up or it's allowed to take up the whole space, right? So when I top 50%, left 50%, the transform translate, like that is what centers the image, and then I'm gonna do a minimum width 100% and a minimum height 100%, and that 100% is relative to the size of the hero container. So this is what makes the image take up the whole width and the height, but whichever one is bigger will protrude outside the hero container, and then that's why I have the overflow hidden, right? And so you can see so I have a scroll bar on the side right now. That's just because the nav bar is pushing the image down, 40 or whatever, 50 or whatever pixels. And I wanted the nav to be fixed anyway, so I changed the position to fixed, and then that sort of fixed the problem. I just have to fix the drop down, right? So when I click that hamburger icon, it pushes the image down. Not sure what I'm thinking about here. I might have been thinking whether or not I want to use a different nav here. But normally, an issue like this, like the first thing I would do is just, oh, maybe I figured out what was going on. But if I didn't know what was going on, the first thing that I would do is just pop open the developer tools, right? So inspect the element and then write the styles there. Just because you get that instant feedback, you don't have to worry about refreshing the page or anything, and then you just copy your styles into your editor. But it looks like I maybe had an idea what I needed to do anyway, so I got that fixed by making the mobile nav, like not the nav bar, but the actual part that drops down, its position absolute. And then I just made it width 100%. So the issue is right now you can see the first item in that nav list is hidden behind the bar, so I just need to push that. And I'm not sure why I guessed 4 pixels there. I don't know what I was thinking. And again, this is a situation. Okay, so here we go. So I am inspecting. Like, you just open up the inspector and you can hop into the style, like grab the element you want, and then just change that top. You can just use your arrow keys and just push it up or down, whichever way you need to go, and then you just copy and paste that value. And so for this situation, that's just hard coding that position is okay, because I don't have any other elements in that nav bar. The height of that nav bar never changes. Yeah, again, I'm using Git in the command line instead of just using VS Code. There's nothing wrong with that, but VS Code has a pretty nice integration for just doing your commits, and just like cleaning the workspace if you have to or whatever. It's a lot easier to just use the GUI. Okay. Anyway, so now that I do have that nav bar worked out, like you can see, there's no scroll bar on the side of the page, right? That image is always gonna take up exactly the height and exactly the width of the screen, no matter what size it is. So I'm also not using a CSS framework in here either. I did actually intend to bring in normalize just for CSS resets, but I think I totally forgot, and it's not really a huge deal for this assignment anyway. But yeah, so when you see me use bootstrappy things like container, that's not actually Bootstrap. I do have to write the custom style for that class. So that style just threw a little bit of padding or margin, or sorry, padding, and then the max width is 1200, and then the margin 0 auto centers that element. So that's just so that your like on large monitors, your content doesn't get too wide. I wish I put that browser full screen there so you could see what I was talking about. I think I'll probably do it later anyway. Here I guess I'm just reading, trying to get an idea what I'm gonna do. So mainly the requirement for this assignment is kind of silly. You have to have 100 words of content on each page. And it can't be like lorem ipsum or whatever, so I'm not sure what the point of the assignment is, to be honest. The unit is introductory to HTML, and the assignment is to use Wix, which has, well, I mean, the requirement to use Wix is nothing. You don't have to know anything about HTML. You don't even need to know what HTML is or CSS or any of that. So it's sort of an odd pick for an assignment considering the topic of the unit. So everything I come up with for the content is just like whatever, like fluff, I guess. yeah, it looks like I maybe got sidetracked. Oh, I was thinking about the content, but I wasn't even done the hero section for this page because I wanted like a big header with Dean Kammen's name and then just like a subheading underneath. Well, and I mean technically, really, the like slogan, I guess if you want to call it that, underneath really isn't even a heading, so that probably shouldn't be an H2 tag. So here I'm just writing the styles to grab those elements, and then they'll just be centered on that image. So what I'm doing over here, like, I'm just hopping in to the developer tools and then like grabbing the element that I want to style and writing the styles, just right there. That way you can see what's going on without having to guess at what you want things to be, right? Like I don't have to keep hitting refresh in the browser to see what's going on. I had HV instead of VH. Yeah, I was gonna say normally I would just do the top 50, left 50, and then do the transform translate to achieve this. I might have been thinking about a different strategy to center that heading. Why it wouldn't be centered there, I'm not too sure. Oh, absolute. I had position relative, right? So yeah, I just need to take those styles and then what am I? Okay, so yeah, I mean there's two ways I could have done this, but the way I went was just making a wrapper div for those elements. Which is the cleaner way, because then there's only one CSS rule to center both of those, right? So yeah, and then we just need those to be text align center. The message element should be text align center. Yeah, so I think at this point I was contemplating how good this is looking and whether or not I should rethink a few things. Um, at the same time, I didn't want to spend too much time with this, so I don't end up changing too much. Um, I do change the size of that heading. Later on, I bring down the size of the message underneath the heading, and then I do end up uppercasing all the words in the nav too. Other than that, I don't think I changed too much about the way this landing page looks right now. Oh, okay, so there I just added a highlight on the nav items when you hover. The one thing I didn't end up doing was having like an active tab, which is something I normally will have in a navigation. So if you were to click on a sub page and you look at your navigation, you'll see like the page that you're on now will be there'll be some visual indicator that shows you that that's the active page, right? So in this example, like if you clicked on the slingshot page and then from slingshot you click the drop down for the nav, slingshot would be highlighted. And I didn't bother with it here. Yeah, so here I'm just trying to figure out what to say to make that 100 word requirement. I may end up going back and finding spots like this in the video and just skipping through them because you guys don't need to watch me do this, I don't think. Yeah. I think we're done now with that. I did end up. So this recording actually was broken up into a few phases because I wasn't able to just sit and do all of this in one go. So in between recordings later, I was like, okay, I'll write the content out first, and then so later on when I do the sub pages, you won't have to see this. I just copy and paste the content into the page. So yeah, there I just pulled up a word counter online to check, and I was only at 52 words, so I had to come up with some more BS. It's still not enough. There you go. Yeah, needed one more word in there. Visit the other pages on this here website. So stupid. Yeah, that there doesn't even look too bad to me. I wish I just left it as is, just a white background and black font. I ended up wasting a lot of time just like dinking around with a color palette for this thing, which is alright because if you're new and you're watching this, just for some exposure to see what all this looks like, you'll see a few tools, I guess, that I use. When I started out, I didn't know about these tools, and they make your life a lot easier. So at least I guess you'll get to see that. But there's no reason for it. Even for the footer, I ended up making a footer with links in the bottom. Like, that wasn't even needed. It wasn't even a requirement. So I'll do this a lot when I don't have a designer to do all the hard work for me. I'll just like Google for colors, and I'll find like a color, like a palette that I like, with not a whole lot of thought into whether or not that palette represents the idea of the web page or anything like that. So I found this one. I was like, kind of cool. So I have this plugin or this Chrome extension called Colorzilla, I think. If you Google Colorzilla, you'll find it. And yeah, it just lets me just click on a color in the web page, and then I have the hex code, and I can throw that in my CSS. It's pretty sweet. Yeah, and looking back on this, I would argue that that container probably looks worse than it did before. Whoops. So something that I make a habit of is just changing default font size and line height. Usually the line height I like it to be about 1.5 the height of the font, or like 150% of the original, roughly, right? Different heights, you just have to play around with the different heights, look better with different fonts. For me, it just drives me crazy when I go to a website and the line height is so small that all the text just feels like it's really like you have this like claustrophobic feeling, and it makes it hard for your eyes to track, especially on a monitor. And yeah, so there, I think I did it with the last commit too. I just threw the commit into the just a built-in plugin that comes with VS Code. Just lets you do the exact same thing that I was doing in the command line earlier. Only the interface is a little nicer. It makes it, the nice thing too, it makes it a lot easier when you have like 5 files with changes and you want a different commit for each of those files. It's a lot faster to do it right in VS Code rather than writing, in the command line, you're like git add and then the name of the file, the path, and the name of the file, and then your commit, and then if there's a body in the commit, you got to open up Vim. It's just a little more convenient to do it in here. Oh, and that back there just a second ago when you saw me make that unordered list, that was just me using Emmet. This makes the page look a little nicer, like a little more complete, just throwing that dark footer on the bottom. It makes that reddish container a little more belonging to, I think. But it was totally unnecessary to throw the footer in there. At least it gives you an idea of how to make a pretty simple footer. A pretty common footer, like honestly, for like this is like what I'm doing here. And you'll see I'll throw in a media query too to handle how the footer looks in desktop versus mobile. But for most like small business, like static 5-page static sites, like this is like exactly what you'll probably end up doing anyway. The one thing I didn't note too, now that I bring up the subject of media queries, all of the styles that I'm writing right now are the mobile styles. I'm not really testing it here, just because I guess maybe I know what all this is gonna look like already. Usually I would have like either in Chrome I'll use one of the emulators to show a phone, or a cool browser that I don't think it's available on Linux yet, but Mac and Windows users, you can download a browser called Blisk, and it's specifically for web developers, and it has a whole bunch of phones built in. So you have like your iPhone 4, 5, 6, and I guess now 7, like a bunch of Android phones and Windows phones and whatever. So you can have like your like roughly what your web page is gonna look on all those phones, and you can select which phone you want, and it'll be like on the side, and then you can have the browser view also, so you can have like 2 views at the same time in the same browser tab. It's kind of cool. So the reason all of these styles are all mobile, except for the footer, that the footer styles I'm writing right now, I'm actually going to end up wrapping that into a media query in a minute. But the reason, in case you don't know, so mobile first, there's two primary reasons. So the first one is your website will load faster on phones and on tablets, because the browser doesn't have to load all the styles that normally are going to be responsible for how your website looks on a desktop. And then after it loads that and it renders all of that, then the media queries fire, and then you render all of your mobile styles. So generally a phone is going to be a lot less powerful than a desktop or a laptop, so that's why we make our mobile styles the first style that gets loaded. And then your media queries are used to bring in your desktop styles. The other reason too is the workflow tends to be a lot easier than going the other way around. So if you write your CSS to look good on desktop first, and then you think about your mobile afterwards, it tends to be a lot harder to move backwards like that than it does the other way around. Most of the time, if you start mobile first, although some things will look a little off in desktop, you'll find like most things will look pretty good, which is the other advantage too. Your default styles will already look pretty good on all devices, and then you end up writing a lot less CSS to build up that tablet and desktop view. So you can see normally if you do it your desktop styles first, and then you build in your mobile views, you'll do like your media queries will be like max width. Here I'm doing min width. So the default styles there are what make the that unordered list stacked, right? And then once the screen hits a certain width, I load in the alternative layout, which is the one that you see on the right now. That's as a result of that media query. Then I have to adjust the media query now because I threw in the proper copy for those links. And the way I'm getting that number, if you don't notice it, just like at the top right in the browser window, as I expand it left and right, little numbers pop up. So that's where I got that number. Of course, for a proper website, you have to do a little more testing than that, but that at least gives you a ballpark idea of where it is. And then you can sort out browser-specific media queries later on when you test and everything else. And then I just threw all of those list items there into anchor tags, so that's why they're all blue on the right. So now I just have to add some styles to those A tags. So here I was thinking of slightly increasing the font size of the links as you hover on them, and I don't know why. I just threw it right in the style for the anchor instead of doing the pseudo class. So I think I clue in right about here. Like trying to figure out why that wasn't working. Yeah, I just threw it in the wrong CSS rule. There we go. So the original idea was that image that I have in the hero image was supposed to be the mobile image, right? So that's why that was the first one I put in. If I had followed through with the original idea and swapped out for a higher res image in the desktop, then I would use JavaScript to do that. But I just wanted to make a point that I chose that image specifically because the resolution was lower, so that's the one that I want the page to try to render first.